nutrient timing and CGM, you will see that even if you go for a short walk, there's a research report that we'll link in our show notes today. And I believe it was from a college over 10 years or something. Don't quote me on that. But I know that the outcome of the study was that just going for a brisk walk after you eat lowered your glycemic index by 30% or more. Just a brief walk after you eat carbs. How have you played around with that? And can you unpack that from both scientific and also personal habits, the timing of nutrients combined with activity?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's two big timing factors. One is with activity, and the other is just the time of day that you're eating and kind of our natural circadian rhythm there. So we can also chat about that. But exercise is one of those huge tools in our toolbox, right? So it's one of those things that you can lean on to help improve your glucose levels and metabolic health overall. So as you're mentioning, and this also, to take a step back, the bigger picture takeaway here is that there's a lot of flexibility in our approaches. So what people often think, black and white, especially when you don't have the data, is that, okay, I can never eat rice, had a glucose spike to that. Or I have to stay under 50 grams of carbohydrates because that's what I read somewhere about what, brings good metabolic health. When actually there's a lot of flexibility. So maybe it's, I can only eat rice on the days that I exercise. And if I missed my workout for whatever reason, I don't eat rice that day. So it's learning those tools so that you can be flexible and adaptable to the real life situations that are inevitably going to happen. What happens when you are out of your routine, when you're traveling, when you're sick, when you're in a totally different scenario? We need to have the ability to adapt appropriately and still stay on track. So exercise is one of those tools. When we work out, either it could be cardio, so like a steady state working out, you're going on a jog, you're doing some light exercise, or it could be something more intense, HIIT, heavy weightlifting, sprints, whatever it is, that is using a lot of glucose in the moment. So you're using up some of those glucose stores that you have in your body, which is essentially making more room for new glucose to come in. So we store glucose molecules in our skeletal muscle, and it's stored as glycogen. So think of it as kind of like the storage space for your glucose. And once that is filled up, then we store things as fat. And so we want to kind of utilize that glycogen storage space as much as possible. When we work out, we're clearing some of that because we're using it to fuel the workout itself, which makes more room for new glucose to then go and be stored there. So that's a big component of why exercise is so beneficial. And then the other component is that it makes us more insulin sensitive. So when we are working out regularly, those muscle cells are more sensitive to insulin, which means when our glucose goes up and our body responds by releasing some insulin, it's able to listen to that signal well. So it has good communication patterns, essentially is how I describe it, and is able to bring that glucose down quickly and appropriately. So we're able to basically maintain homeostasis really efficiently. So it's like a well-oiled machine when we have that good insulin sensitivity. And the act of working out and using our muscles regularly, even if it's kind of that more mild workout or more intense, helps to build that insulin sensitivity.
There's one more thing that I'm fascinated to, and that is the dumping of liver glycogen, right? So I'm curious the timing on that. I've heard 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, depending on the volume. What's your heart rate? What kind of load are you doing? But the liver can be emptied as well. So would a good workout, a solid workout, for someone to start, just be focusing on some cardiovascular training and then doing the carbs pre or post workout? Or depending on where you are you looking to actually completely empty the liver and the skeletal muscle as well?
Yeah, so it's complex in like the glucose homeostasis and all the pathways. The liver can like infinitely make more and more glucose through gluconeogenesis. So in really intense exercise, so we see this a lot with like CrossFitters or people who are performing at a high level, they're seeing a big glucose spike while they're exercising at that intense level because their liver is dumping out glucose to directly fuel that workout. So it's getting used up immediately, and it might not even be the glycogen storage form. It might be new glucose that the liver is producing to give it energy. And So it's important for people to know if they do see that glucose spike during intense exercise, that it's a good thing. You're fueling the activity that your body needs the energy for. So it's a lot different than having a glucose spike while you're sitting on your couch and eating some food, and that energy doesn't need to be immediately used. So that's one component of it. But if somebody is just getting started with exercise and they know that this is, a healthy habit that they want to do, it's cheesy, but I always say start with the thing that you're most likely to stick to. So the thing that you like, so that you'll do it consistently, because what we've seen is consistency is where you're going to see the biggest outcome. So if that's just gentle walking, that helps too. But if you're dedicated, you're focused, and you want to know where's the best place to start for metabolic health, I would actually recommend some strength training. So building up that lean body mass, because what we see often is that early stages of insulin resistance. So basically the opposite of insulin sensitivity, when your body is not understanding those signals from insulin as well and not doing the reactions it's supposed to when insulin is released. So early signs of insulin resistance often starts in the muscles. So particularly, this becomes impaired glucose tolerance. So after meals, our glucose stays high or goes really high, and that's an early indicator of insulin resistance. And a lot of times it's because we've started to store some lipids in that skeletal muscle that decreases our insulin sensitivity, which is causing that kind of miscommunication with insulin. So when we can make our skeletal muscle in better shape and build up that lean body mass, get lots of skeletal muscle, and start to do some strength training, we usually see the quickest improvements in some of that glucose control and insulin sensitivity. So if you're not somebody who typically strength trains very often, that's a really good place to start. But all exercise is good exercise.
All right, y'all, you heard it here. Don't fall into the trap that you have to do shit you hate all the time to succeed. Like, shout out to David Goggins and certain people like that, because there is a time and a place where it is good to push yourself, especially like the younger generation. And even in my generation, there seems to be a lot of softness physically, like the celebration of dad bod. And that's a whole nother podcast with the insane psyop that's coming, where men can't be men anymore and women have to be more masculine. It's utterly insane. I just don't even understand it. So I won't even go there. The only reason I mention that is because I think we all, men and women, we all deserve to have strong, healthy bones, to have strong, healthy muscles. But what you're bringing to the table is even better, because what you're sharing with us is that there's actually, when you're not moving, fat that gets stored in the muscle belly. And I remember back in my early training, like NASM OPT model 2002 is when I learned it, over 20 years ago. It was about these actin and myosin hooks that are in the sarcomere, and they tear, and that's what produces lactic acid. But that's also what happens when your glucose and your glycogen is needed to restore the function, to repair the function of your muscles. I personally don't like to work out with food in my body. It just doesn't work. I know some people can like slam oatmeal and then go to the gym. I'm like, that doesn't work for me. So I like to fast in the morning and do some resistance training, or even go for a walk, and then reward myself when I've naturally, through these muscles working, through the actin and myosin and the sarcomere creating that lactic acid, replenish myself with like a smoothie or some fruit or... Whoa. So you love that episode? You'll love the one on the screen. Click it and enjoy.